Why did you agree to do these interviews?
Well, because it's time. You know, you can only live with shame for so long. And once you heal of shame, you forgive yourself, you forgive others, you accept what's happened to you. As the Buddhists would say, acceptance, the middle path, it's time. And I think people should hear from former leaders. They should hear about redemption stories. They should hear about, you know, how I'm working or worked to overcome, you know? And so for me, that's important. And also because, let's face it, I believe that I deserve mercy. And that mercy in form of a pardon is very important to me because I would like to further the work that I've been doing with this passion and vigor that I've had because of my mistake.
So, if it's not politics, what do you want to do?
Well, you know, I do have an MBA in finance. I do have a master's of divinity. So trying to blend those two together, because a pardon don't necessarily mean that I'm going to, a pardon don't necessarily mean that I'm going back to politics. As I told you before, wherever I'm called, I'll go. If that leads me back to politics, then so be it. But there are passions of mine, you know, still as a child to be a philanthropist, you know.
What's it like being out in front of City Hall?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Remember, this is 5 years. You know what I mean? So this is my first time actually standing in front of City Hall though. So it feels good. It feels good.
It's your first time back?
This is my first time back, and that's the God's honest truth. It is my first time here. Yeah. And it's, you know, same old City Hall. Same old ruckus. Yeah.
You think you can make a difference here?
Absolutely. I've already done so. It's time to make an even bigger difference.
Seems like anyone without a D behind their name isn't going to get back in this building.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, because you got to speak to the class. You know, when I was here, I was talking about working class black folks, working class white folks, poor black folks. You have to be able to speak the language. The current collective leadership, they're not speaking the language of the working class white folks and working class black folks. So people are just choosing the best option, which happens to be from the same party.
After what happened to you, people are going to be flummoxed to think that you would want to go back.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's almost saying that I should just give up my passion. I should just give up my desire. I did that for 5 years. I gave it up. I was angry, frustrated, and again, I don't have to come back here. I don't have to come back here. I can go anywhere. That a pardon will help. But I'm always up for the challenge. And because I'm so passionate about where I grew up, where I was born, you know, you got to be here. You know, it's an old saying that a prophet is without honor in his own town. So you kind of expect that it comes with the territory. So here I am back in my town, not for honor, not for glory, for passion and to make a difference.
Jeff, thanks for meeting with us. I reached out to you shortly after you got out of prison and asked if you would do an interview when you're ready. Appears you're ready.
I am ready. And actually, if you recall, Dave, when I was being processed into the FBI database or the Department of Justice, you were there as I was calling my wife to come pick me up. So I had always had it in my mind to always reach back out, so I appreciate it.
Why now?
It's time to put things behind us. And what I mean by that is that for a long time, I held the guilt, the shame, the anger, the frustration, the hatred for my mistake, the separation from my family. And so after all of that, I figured at some point we have to move on. And when I say we, I'm talking about me, my family, the city of Cincinnati, accept the mistakes that were made. But there's this reinvigoration, if you will, this passion that came back with the healing. One that says that, you know, although I felt like my time at City Hall was ripped from me, my passion was authentic and it was genuine, irrespective of whatever mistake I made.
Where did that passion grow from, and when?
Well, the passion grew from watching my mother work and other hardworking mothers and fathers downtown in the West End, and then eventually in Carthage. As you see now in the city of Cincinnati, a lot of things that are occurring, a lot of crime is poverty driven. And because I was surrounded by a really tight village, one that ensured that I went to school on time, the one that made sure that I was reared correctly, I felt like it was my responsibility. Still to this day, I feel like it's my responsibility to speak for us, the working class blacks and the working class whites, who I felt and still feel to this day are being railroaded by their representatives.
In what way?
Well, I think there are band-aids that are put on very troubling, deep-cut situations like crime, like housing, like the affordability of groceries, transportation. I feel like they're left out of the conversation as a certain class uses working class blacks and whites, number one, to cause friction amongst one another, and they volley them back and forth. And so growing up like that, and even now being in this situation where I've been knocked down the socioeconomic ladder, I feel it and I see it more intensely, feel it more intensely and see it more clearly, what is taking place. And so now that I've had this experience, I feel closer to the leader that I wanted to be when I first started running. I feel closer now because of my mistakes and detours, because I feel strangely closer to the people that I grew up around in West End and Carthage and other surrounding areas, one of the hills.
As you were growing up, did you have political aspirations? What did you want to be when you were a kid?
Well, I wanted to be a philanthropist. I wanted to have a lot of money, and then I wanted to give back to the people. I always wanted a big family. You know, I wanted a wife and children, which I have, and I'm grateful for that. I did want to be a force to be reckoned with in terms of politics. My family, as I've said this before, were like conservative, if you will. Not conservative in the sense of, you know, like a party or whatever. It's just, you know, conservative. And my uncle, my mother, my grandmother, and just the entire village impressed upon me the love for history. And in history, I found about the Republican Party freeing the slaves. And so that set me on a path that I always wanted liberty. I always wanted freedom. Strangely, I had a chance to live out some of those ideals while being incarcerated. Just how much I love freedom, just how much I love liberty, just how much I love my family. That being snatched away from you, and you're this forced separation because of a mistake that you made. If it don't break you, it definitely builds resilience. It definitely builds even greater character. And it's probably an experience that I needed as a leader.
A lot of kids growing up in the inner city believe that someday they're going to be in prison. When I interview kids that are impoverished, that are already in gangs, they know that they're either going to be in prison or dead by the time they're 25.
Yeah.
That's what they think. What did you think?
Well, I was still to this day, I guess that inner child still lives in me. I never thought about it. I never thought about I was going to be in prison. Never thought about I was going to be another statistic. It was just that, I guess you call that Pastor Pitts energy that was just bubbling up inside me. I always knew that I was going to do something. Got it from my mother, got it from my uncle, got it from my father. Just knew that I needed to change some things. Interestingly, when I was at Ashland camp, there was a young man, 21 years old, two young men, 21 years old. One was in there because his uncle ultimately, you know, sent them there. And the other one was there for what amounted to be a minor crime. And it broke my heart to see that. And as I was, redeeming, and when I say redeeming, I'm saying that as I'm working through trauma, as I'm working through guilt, as I'm working through shame, I see these two 21-year-olds and I think about Cincinnati. Those same children, I shouldn't say children, excuse me, young adults, those same young adults live in Cincinnati. And so me going to what amounts to be socioeconomic hell, prison, and coming back out, that spark, that passion is bubbling, that pits and pasture, that bubbling, that I can't describe it. It's something that, I can't explain that passion, that leadership passion for people. Just again reinvigorated me in a way that I'm almost blinded by obsession for those 21-year-olds, for the 78-year-old man, locked up in prison, an 87-year-old man locked up in these camps, and seeing that, I give thanks for the mistakes that I've made, because I was able to go and find and see, where the work needs to be done. And there are plenty of those 21-year-olds. There are plenty of those 25-year-olds who live here in the city of Cincinnati. And it's almost as if I'm being called, if you will, to come back and really this time, irrespective of what people think, irrespective of what people say. It's almost like Paul of Tarsus, when he was knocked off his ass and he was blinded for 3 days. And he came back and he was one of the most powerful leaders. It's almost like Abraham, Moses, or any other Quranic, Judaic, or biblical character, or even in our own lives. We see with President Trump. We saw it with Abraham Lincoln. We saw it with Malcolm X. We saw it with Martin, Fannie Lou Hamer, and you name it. Just these people who are blinded by this obsession to change the world because of failure. President Clinton comes to mind. Father was an alcoholic, and so he was just obsessed with being a leader. He was just obsessed. The failure that President Trump had when it came to the casino, he just came back just a little bit more powerful. So I understand Martin's passion. I understand Malcolm's passion now after the mistake, after the fall. But even more so is because that hunting experience of seeing those babies, not babies, but those young men, that hunting experience of being away from my family. I don't want anyone, not my children, my nieces, nephews, cousins, I don't want anyone to experience that. So that's why I'm back, because there's a lot of work to do here in the city of Cincinnati.
So let's go back to 2018, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. You were a city council person. What was going on in your world at that time?
I was ecstatic. One former city employee said you were knocking everything out of the park. I was hitting home runs, standing up for tax-paying citizens. I was against the taxes, although we lost my ideological side lost a lot of those battles in terms of raising taxes to fund firefighters, etc. But I was knocking everything out of the park. A lot of 5-4 votes. We were able to put folks from 2018 on, was able to get the right folks on the park boards. Community benefits agreement with FC Cincinnati. We did FC Cincinnati, the largest all women course, CCW course, free. And then other CCW course, which eclipsed all of the records here in the state of Ohio. We were able to get Liberty Street done. I was able to work across the aisle for a lot of things. So I felt like in 2018 and forward, I was in my element. But that came with a cost, Dave. That came with a lot of cost. That came with a lot of personal, emotional turmoil, because my little self and this enormous problem with poverty and the concentration of poverty was weighing on me, is weighing on my family, and ultimately it went the other way.
You felt at the time, did you feel invincible? You had lost your job. You in some way became vulnerable to the FBI coming in and offering you something that you took.
Yeah, and so originally, and I can speak about this on camera. Originally, I thought I was being hired for a job. I thought I was being employed. And you're absolutely correct. In hindsight, is always 2020. I probably would have asked a lot more questions. I probably should have listened and followed to the T my then lawyer telling me what to do and how to do it. But I want to be very clear. I accept responsibility. Don't want to relitigate the past. But my intent was never to be corrupt. I didn't pursue these FBI agents or any confidential informant. I understand that the now after this process that the federal government has a certain level of entrapment that they can pursue. They can lay the traps and that sort of thing. Ultimately, I failed. I also want to point out that initially my mindset was to go to trial because I felt that strongly about my truth. Never disputed the facts, as my former representative said, my former counsel said. Never disputed the facts, but I dispute the truth. That's in the past now. I made the mistake. Ultimately, I took the plea deal. It's my mistake to own. It's my plea deal to own. But because of that, because my intentions were pure, I certainly believe that a person similarly situated, myself, deserves a presidential pardon. My entire life, I've been able to outperform all of the stereotypes. From my childhood up until 36, never been in trouble with the law, ever. I mean, not so much as, with maybe a divorce or a traffic ticket, but that's it. And so this one mistake that was born out of a creation by the government, I don't think that defines my entire life. I think it's just a part of the story. I think it's an important part of the story, though, that we have to be careful. I didn't have the respect I do now. I shouldn't say respect. I underestimated the power of the federal government. As a person who believes in limited government, it's not something that I wanted to admit, that the federal government is powerful. Well, I got a lesson. I got a lesson, firsthand lesson in just how powerful the federal government is. Even much so, Dave, had I not took the plea deal, there's a real chance that I could have been away from my family for 7 to 8 years.
So you say that you were entrapped. It still boggles the mind, though, that you would accept money in exchange for a positive vote for what was presented to you.
Well, I would ask you, what was the positive vote?
Well, this real estate deal.
There was no vote. What positive vote? I think it was my former lawyer who said that if the federal government at the time was looking for this corruption, and they, whatever money that came out through PG Sittenfield trial, whatever money that they spent, they certainly didn't here in the city of Cincinnati. They didn't get everything that they paid for. Because I would say, what positive vote did I give?
It's not necessarily that you didn't vote, it's that you said you were going to support this project in exchange for this money. That's what the indictment says. That's what you pled guilty to, in essence.
Exactly. So, because my intent in front of 12 jurors, I don't think was going to go my way. And after 4 years of going back and forth with my lawyer, being disbarred, throughout this process, there's no way that I could convince, in my opinion, the 12 jurors that somehow I was innocent. As you know, I'm extraordinarily straightforward and hard charging. But that's not necessarily a good thing when you're on the wire, because your words can be taken out of context. I accept that. I accept that was a mistake. I accept that I didn't particularly trust, that the government, would positively cast me in the light. Obviously, they didn't. They indicted me. And so when you say that I exchanged, for a future vote, I mean, that's still to this day, I mean, really ridiculous to me. And when, as pointed out in the media, when I did vote, I voted against the project. These are facts. I mean, the projects that were at hand. I shouldn't have voted at all. I guess hindsight is 2020. But in my mindset, well, I'm doing right. I'm not doing anything wrong, and that wasn't the correct mindset to have.
Talk to me about when the feds came in and arrested you.
Bizarre. That I mean, you're talking about a man who's never been in trouble in his life, to have FBI agents at your house with my pregnant wife and children watching. Could have just asked me to come down to the station, self-surrender and that sort of thing. You have me, but that was bizarre. You know, it was fair, I guess, because that's how they treat all folks who are seized by the FBI. So it is. I would say, though, strangely, it felt like peace. Once all this was out, it started that necessary, what they call creative destruction. You know, still angry, still upset,